Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode 293 for June 4th, 2023. I'm your host, TomMaster99, and with me tonight, we have one Mr. Game Logic. Game, how's it going tonight?
Good, man. Ready to talk some gaming news and some video games.
Oh, yeah. Got some new stuff that I've been playing at least. So we'll start off with that on our main GX stories. So I had this past weekend, last couple days, I was in that kind of weird, like I don't know what to play. Like I've been playing a lot of Fortnite, obviously, because I always play that in Rocket League. But there's always like some other, at least one or two other games I like to kind of play, either single player or whatnot. Still playing through Hogwarts Legacy. I've been playing a little bit of that this past week, but this past weekend I was kind of at that point where I was like, I don't know what to play. Like I didn't really feel like playing anything. So as usual, when that happens, I jump into Game Pass and just kind of go down the list of games. And the first game, which is super quick, I literally only played it. I was actually looking at the stats a few hours ago because I was like, how long did I play this game? I was actually As Dusk Falls, which is that kind of interactive kind of adventure story game where you kind of in the Telltale games type of esque gaming, where you kind of just there's like a story playing through. It's kind of like an interactive novel, basically. Literally, only played 11 minutes, so I'm at the very early stages. I what I do when I look at the Game Pass is I kind of just say, hey, all right, show me all the games, and I just kind of start at the top of the list and kind of go through. So I had already played most of the ones, I think like the first couple rows, and As Dusk Falls was kind of the new game for me, so I jumped into it. But it was good, but I wasn't in the mindset for like an adventure type or like story novel type of game like that. So I only played a little bit of it. From what I saw, like the acting and stuff seems really good. It kind of just like a TV show playing out basically, or a movie. Animation's a little weird. It kind of has that almost like a watercolor esque kind of art style to it. So it's basically people are like real people, but it has that like watercolor graphic style, wrapped around everything. That was kind of throwing me off just because the movement's kind of weird too, a little bit. It's not fluid. It's not like I don't know, like Walking Dead or any of those type of games where it's kind of you can kind of take control sometimes and like move characters around. You're fully out of control of the characters as far as I can tell for right now. So you just kind of press things, almost quick time events here and there, or make a choice for like dialogue stuff. So like I said, super early into it, but I'll get back to it once I'm in the mood, as it were. Sometimes you got to be in the mood for games, and I just wasn't in the mood for that game. But the next one I started playing, and I never did play this one. I actually wanted to get to it when it first came out, and I think Game Logic had been playing it recently. Assassin's Creed Origins, which I totally forgot. Some of the Ubisoft stuff is out there now, so I jumped into that one. Actually, technically, Odyssey was first in alphabetical order, but I jumped into Origin just because that's the game before. I always like to kind of go in the correct way they came out. But actually, this is the first Assassin's Creed game I played. Well, I played some Odyssey before this back in the day, but even before that, like the first one, that last one I had played was, I believe, 2, which was the beginning of the Enzio trilogy. I think that was a trilogy of games, I believe. So it had been a long time since I had played some Assassin's Creed. So this is in ancient Egypt and kind of that surrounding area that you're playing as this character. And I don't know if it was just me, and Game Logic, you can speak to this, but it almost seemed like they kind of just threw you into the story like a little bit, or maybe I don't know. It just seemed kind of weird, like how it played out, I guess, as the story was unfolding from the beginning. And I'm at the part. I don't want to give anything away, but there's things about your son that you find out. That's the part I'm at right now. Things that happened back in the past, and it just, I don't know. It just kind of seemed like this. Just the storytelling was a little weird to me. Like they kind of just throw you into it at the beginning, like you just go ahead and start fighting and stuff, and then they kind of pull you back into the past and then put you back in the present, or the present for the game. So I don't know. I just seemed a little weird, just the storytelling aspect of it. I don't know if it seemed weird to you when you were playing it at all.
No, I mean it felt a little janky. And what Tal's referring to is like when I mean for people who for whatever reason may not have played the game before, when the story kicks off, you're not really the whole point of like why you're going after people isn't really fully fleshed out. Like you see a scene that leads you to believe that some wrongs were done to you in the past, and then but it's hard for me to tell if I just accepted that when I went back and started playing it a few weeks ago because I kind of knew that was the setup, maybe. Um, but yeah, it feels a little kind of plot hole-ish, in the start. If you weren't somebody who kept up with like the whole Assassin's Creed series and the Ubisoft, E3 shows back then. So that all being said, what I compliment Ubisoft on, and I've typically given this praise to the Division 2, but I realize now it really applies here to Origins as well. Ubisoft has done a really great job on some occasions of just getting you into the game. We've talked extensively on this show about kind of onboarding, and for people who listen to the show, that people should know that's a particular pet peeve of mine. And it's the Monster Hunters and the Red Dead Redemptions and things of that nature do a pretty bad job of that, in my opinion. I think that they do a job that a lot of the gaming market and community are okay with, but I personally believe it's from the perspective of having done lots of training videos and et cetera, and education and things like that. Like I just feel like the approach is bad. It's a lot of tell me instead of just show me, or things that things from a training perspective that can be done better in a digitally interactive environment. And the Division 2 is like you are literally in a firefight within I think 60 seconds of starting the Division 2. After you kind of do your initial character setup. And this does that to you too. It just immediately throws you into a fight. Odyssey does that as well. You start off, you're part of the 300. I'm not sure if you're in the famous battle. I think you're in the precursor battle to the battle of, I guess it's Thermopylae. But you're immediately thrown into a fight. Now it's a little janky because then they do the JRPG thing, at least in Odyssey, of I'm not particularly a fan of the onboarding where you play a character engaged in a fight and then there's a complete swap and it's kind of like the fight you were in is completely irrelevant to the actual storyline you're going into. They don't do that with Origins though. You immediately go into a fight that's actually applicable to Bayek and the Magi. So yeah, no, I get you, but I also, for me, like within minutes, getting past that first fight and then within like 15 minutes of the game, like that, just any notion or concern that I had about that pretty much melted away as I like immediately started getting into contact with the characters and sort of kind of being pulled along into the story. And then Bethesda games, we often talk about the big the walkout moment, and I think the town you're first in is called Siwa. I'm not positive, but then there's that walkout moment where you're on the camel and you come up over the crest, and there you see the Nile River and Siwa. And like all of that stuff kind of rushing at me, and how good the combat felt and everything, just maybe forgiving of that of that notion. I had also been playing Odyssey beforehand, so I was already kind of also programmed for the whole. Let me pull up the map. Let me connect the dots. Let me go around to all the different adventures and stuff. And but yeah, I get you.
Yeah, it was kind of nice though to get back into Assassin's Creed because I kind of going through the world, and that first little village you're in. Obviously, there's like kind of just small, little huts and buildings and stuff. Nothing super huge. Then you go to this temple where you can start climbing a little bit more, and I just completely forgot. Like, oh yeah, I can just climb. Pretty much anything. You can just start climbing up the walls, and obviously, if there's you can see kind of the there's like these little bricks or the stones that are like just slightly, like pulled out. So obviously you can climb it and stuff like that. But it still seems kind of natural within the world and everything. But it's just, oh hey, I can just I climb up this wall. Like when I did with the first mission, I actually went like around like the whole building because I completely forgot I could just climb it, but I didn't do it that way. So I still made it. I still did that very first mission. I'm trying to rescue some people. We're supposed to rescue some people. I think the guy actually I wound up dead, but I rescued some other people. But I did it the hard way basically. But and then as I was starting to play, I was like, oh yeah, I could do this. I can there's like ropes and stuff along buildings you can kind of like scurry across and do all that kind of stuff. Obviously the famous Assassin's Creed jump off of stuff into like bales of hay or whatever that just happens to be sitting there. But I mean the gameplay is it's always been spot on. I've always liked the Assassin's Creed, just getting around and everything like that. Combat's good. I do like the kind of, I guess, kind of looty aspect of it too, because you do find like weapons and armor and stuff around, which I don't believe that was in like previous Assassin's Creed, as far as I could tell. At least, like I said, last one was 2 that I played, so that's kind of cool too. I've always liked that kind of looty kind of gameplay. So finding different treasures, and there's different spots where like you see like a question mark, and it's like when you hit those areas, it's like, hey, there's like 1 of 3 or like 0 of 3 treasures you got to find or something like that. So you kind of have to go, it's not super hard. Obviously, if you just look around the area a little bit, you're gonna find everything, but still kind of cool. Like there's one underwater level, which I didn't realize you can swim in this one, so that's kind of cool. Dive under the water and all that. So there's different tunnels and stuff I had to go into. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely enjoying this. I started off playing on my phone, and so it played fine. Like I didn't have any problems. I was playing on my Razer Kishi, I believe it's called. Little controller that I snapped into my phone, and then I jumped onto my Xbox One X, and I was playing it just on my big screen TV, and it's a gorgeous game. I was actually playing that through the xCloud. This is probably the first game that I've had some issues with, like some not draw in, but it was more of like I'd be walking through the world, and all of a sudden the screen would kind of like pause for a second, and you see like the line like kind of trace across, like it's like trying to render in everything, which I very rarely would ever see that with most of the games I've been playing. So I actually ended up installing it on that machine at least. So I'm going to continue with that. Now, when I was playing on my phone, oddly enough, when I was playing my phone, I didn't see that. Like I didn't have any like graphics issues, and I was like on a 5G connection, I think, at that point. So I don't know, maybe it was just, networks being hit or whatever at the time of night. It's kind of later at night. So, but I just ended up installing it anyway, so I'll have a little smoother experience. And just every once in a while, you see that like pixelation and stuff, like when you're trying to play it. So I was like, I'll just install it. But I'll continue on that one. It's pretty cool. I've always liked that kind of that era and stuff. So I'm going to continue on with it. But yeah, so those are the 2 xCloud games I played in Game Pass games. So let's jump into the headlines. Unless you had any other comments or questions. I see you didn't have anything new this past week.
Nope.
Okay, cool. All right, let's jump into some MetaQuest announcements, some hardware and actually games. So they did announce the MetaQuest 3 before the kind of showcase they had for the coming games coming up in the next year or so, and beyond. I guess some of the games didn't have any kind of announcement or like time period. But so the MetaQuest 3 is official. And it will be $499 coming out this fall, I believe. Yeah, it's coming this fall. They haven't had a specific date yet. New Snapdragon processor in the machine. I'm trying to find the other specs here. Sorry. So you'll have once again the 128 option, and then it looks like just the 512. So there's no in between 256. Well, actually, I'm sorry. There is a 128 gig version right now, and then they haven't announced anything past that, but hopefully I'm assuming they'll have something like that in mind coming up in the future. No specs about resolution or anything like that yet. There's going to be a Meta Connect, I believe, in September that they're going to kind of go into it a little bit more, and I'm assuming they'll have all the specs and all that, so we'll get kind of more of that. But it's a slimmer design. Like they've shown pictures of the actual headset and the controllers, so the controllers don't have that ring around it anymore. It's just kind of an open space controller, but pretty much more or less looks about the same, other than that ring, the sensor ring that was around the old I'm assuming the first quest and the second quest, quest 2. And then, like I said, the headset itself is a lot slimmer, a lot smaller. It looks like there's, I'm assuming those are sensors in the front. I didn't get a chance to, I was just kind of reading articles and stuff, but I didn't know if they had any kind of video presentation on it itself. But so we got the MetaQuest 3. And then along with that, they had the showcase for the different games that are coming out. And I'll just run through these really quick. And then if there's anything that you want to talk about, just let me know. So I got Arizona Sunshine 2, which was also announced during the PlayStation showcase a couple weeks ago. We have Asgard's Wrath 2, which is kind of an action adventure game. We actually had, had an announcement of the Assassin's Creed VR game, which is called Assassin's Creed Nexus VR. No gameplay or anything was that shown, just kind of the symbol or the icon of it, the title and stuff. And Ubisoft's going to have the Ubisoft Forward, I believe, later this month. June 12th. That I'm assuming they're going to officially show like gameplay, or maybe, or at least like a CG trailer or something. Attack on Titan VR Unbreakable game, which I was kind of in and out of the showcase when they're showing off the games, and this one came up, and they're like, oh yeah, we're this first time, and they have announced this before, but they're like, oh, we're going to show you for the first time actual gameplay. Kind of weird, because then when they first started showing this, like the first thing, like little disclaimer at the bottom of the game was, this is not actual in-game footage, but it's actually using engine, it's in-game engine. So I thought that was kind of funny. We actually have Bulletstorm, so it looks like it's going to be the full Bulletstorm game, but in VR. You'll be able to play it in VR. So that was from, I think the original developers were People Can Fly, I believe. I'm not sure if they're doing this one too. I was going to look that up and I forgot, but I'll take a look at that. Death Game Hotel, which looks like it's you could do solo, co-op, or 6-player online. Looks like it's just a bunch of mini games, and it's from the same studio that did Deadly Premonition, so it might be kind of weird. You got Demeo Battles, which Demeo is actually one of the few VR games that I really enjoyed, and actually kind of a genre I'd never really got into before. It was kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons tabletop adventure game. There's like this board, and you have these little guys or little characters that you can move around, and you can have different powers, and obviously there's rogues and wizards and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. This one's going to be PvP only. So I don't know if this is like a totally different game. It looks like it's like a totally different game, and not just like an update or add on to the current Demeo game. So that'll be interesting. Dungeons of Eternity, which is an adventure or action adventure hack and slash game. I've also saw that there's going to be some RPG elements, which I guess kind of everything has RPG elements nowadays. But so that'll be interesting. And actually, I've seen some people kind of compare this to Legendary Tales, which I do play a lot. I kind of see it because you're in dungeons. There's like skeletons and like spiders and little goblins and stuff coming at you. But I don't know. It seemed a little bit more cartoony than Legendary Tales is. And not as Legendary Tales has a lot of actual, like the sword play is actually like sword play. Like you go to hit somebody, and if like they guard or parry you, you're going to bounce off and stuff like that. So this one seemed more hack and slashy, which it kind of says here in the description, but we'll have to see. Some more on Ghostbusters: Rise of the Ghost Lord. It's a little more gameplay. I Expect You to Die 3 from the makers of the Among Us VR game, not actual Among Us, but just the VR game itself. Another version of NFL Pro Era, which looks like it's going to be a totally different game, like just the next iteration. How they do Madden and all that stuff. So this is going to be the next one. And I believe in Pro Era, the original Pro Era, you're only able to do quarterback, I believe. So they said they're going to try to expand out, I guess, multiplayer here a little bit more and kind of have a bigger scope on the game. So I don't know if you'll be able to play like different positions or not, but we'll see. No More Rainbows, which is kind of like a platformer for in 3D. Power Wash Simulator, so that's a VR game, so we're going to get Power Wash Simulator. That seems to be everywhere lately. Racket Club, which is a tennis game. Samba de Amigo, which is the old Sega. It's kind of remind me of like the Beat Saber VR, that kind of type of game. Silent Slayer, Vault of the Vampire, which is a vampire slayer stealth game. Stranger Things VR, Seventh Guest, which I'm kind of surprised I thought that was already out, but maybe I was thinking of Myst. There was a Myst version of VR game too, but Seventh Guest, the old not stop motion FMV footage kind of game from back in the day, from the early PC days, CD-ROM days. Underdogs, which is a kind of a roguelike battler when you're in mechs, and it looks like it's kind of has like a story along with it too, where you and your brother are going along battling these different foes. Vampire the Masquerade Justice, so the Masquerade Vampire series, and actually that was it for the showcase. So some pretty decent games that were coming out. I was actually excited for the Racket Club of all things, that and the Dungeons of Eternity. So those look pretty cool. And Bulletstorm, I think I played like the demo of the original Bulletstorm back on the 360, and it was, at the time, I enjoyed it. I just once again I had a lot of stuff I was playing, so I never really got to buy the game and play it. But this will give me maybe a chance to jump into it, and it looked pretty decent. I was actually kind of surprised. So for a VR game, but anything catch your eye? And I don't know if you had a chance to check out the article or the showcase at all, but I know you're kind of not doing VR too much anymore, but
No, and I didn't look up the hardware on the Meta Quest, but just their design approach that they've been taking, which is to focus on the untethered experience. I mean, I know that's good for people, it's convenience and comfort, but I mean, my primary interest in VR was, using the power of the very expensive GPU that I have to, power your VR experience. I'm not really interested in an untethered one. No, the only two things that I really saw of interest here in the showcase were Vampire the Masquerade, because I'm just I'm a big Vampire the Masquerade like fan. Um, way back from, in the day of the original RPG from like 2000, 2001. But the original video game RPG. I know that the pen and paper one existed further, older, is older than that. And Bulletstorm VR, which is being done by a studio called Incuvo. It's not being done by People Can Fly. I think I've only seen like one real instance of where like a real major AAA studio has like opened a VR arm, and is doing both, traditional, AAA production as well as like a VR. In most cases, if a studio is going to develop an existing IP as a VR, it's usually, farmed out to somebody external. But yeah, those are the only two things that interested me, that caught my eye. What I don't know, again, just because I know that Meta has been seeking to kind of enter the lower cost end of the market. I didn't pull the thread on whether or not this thing will kind of have a cable and let you attach it, and utilize it in tethered mode. But if I were going to go back towards VR, I'd probably look at something like the Valve Index or maybe one of the upgraded Vive models. But I am planning on getting back into VR, at some point. It's on my list, but just not like a priority right now.
yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, I haven't really been playing too much. I just kind of started dabbling again last couple weeks, and not enough to like bring it up in the show, just because I haven't had a whole ton of time to do it. But I definitely want to jump back into it and get back to some of the games. There was supposed to be an update actually for one of the Legendary Tales games that I talked about, but I guess the developer has been having some issues because they've tried to move over to Unreal 5, and there's been like just personal stuff that have come up. So, but I'm still waiting on that. But yeah, like I said, there's a few things here. The Ghostbusters one actually looks pretty cool too, because it's a multiplayer one. So me and my friends can jump into that. But other than that, um, nothing like super excited. Assassin's Creed might be interesting. Just uh, I- that one might be interesting, but kind of vomit inducing, maybe just because of the the movement that you do in Assassin's Creed, because you're running and jumping, trying to climb onto stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how what that is, because obviously, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they can do like a huge area like like they've done in Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla, some of these other games, the recent games. So it might be more of a contain maybe just one little city, or even a district or something. But I'm actually looking forward to the Ubisoft Connect to see more of that. Hopefully they show actual gameplay and not just like a CGI trailer or something. So, but we'll have to wait on that. All right, let's jump into the next news story here. You got some spider. Oh,
Well, I
sorry,
did just want to mention a couple pieces on your news story. Because I thought I saw. Yeah, I didn't know. I sorry. I thought I saw indications of the 256 or 512 gigabyte model, but nothing solid. That was actually that they've reduced prices on the Quest 2
Yeah.
128 and 256 gigabyte models. Also, nothing here in Tom's Hardware about whether or not it has a tethered mode. So
Yeah.
I'll keep looking for that.
Yeah, they just have they say there's a 128 for now and then additional storage options, for those who want more space, but they didn't go into any detail into those ones. And then I also forgot to mention that the Quest 2 will get, I guess, some kind of upgrade where it'll actually. And I forgot to look up that. It didn't say it in this article. There was another article I had found, and I couldn't find it when I was going back looking at articles. But basically, Quest 2 is going to get like a graphical bump or of some kind. I think it was like 14-15% or something like that. So somehow they're going to just do a software update and bump up the graphic quality or something within the system itself. So you'll probably see a little bit better, quality games on some of them at least. So a lot of times though, like kind of like you said, like I just have it tethered to my machine right now. So I pretty much rarely ever played it standalone anymore. Now that I have this new PC, so which is nice. All right, let's jump into your couple articles or a few articles here. First one's up about Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, and one other thing. Uh,
Sorry.
So it does. The MetaQuest 3 will allow you to tether to your PC, but yeah, I didn't. I think I realized this when the MetaQuest 2 first came out, but then wrote it off. But it only uses AirLink, so it's not a cable. So
Yeah.
obviously, right, doesn't have the bandwidth to really push the total power of a PC GPU. So yeah, I think it's just firmly not a solution for me. Although I absolutely understand its mass market appeal and why they would go in that direction. But yeah, just off the radar for me. As you've been trying to say for the last two times, Spider-Man 2. This article posted over on IGN by Alex Stedman. Spider-Man 2's map will be twice the size of its predecessors. We've just gotten some clarity on how big Spider-Man 2's map will be, and rest assured there will be plenty to explore. The game's creative director, Brian Intihar, revealed as much as in an interview with the Washington Post, sometimes referred to as WAPO, saying that the sequel's map will be twice the size of Spider-Man 1's. He also teased what it's like to swing around in Queens, which we previously learned would become available during last week's 12-minute gameplay demo. So as well as Queens, there will actually also be Brooklyn. And so in Spider-Man 1, you could only swing around Manhattan, and now you're going to get two other boroughs in New York, which means if they do a Spider-Man 3, you only have to... How many boroughs are there in New York City? 5? You only have to add, a couple more, and you basically almost got the entire city. So that's pretty exciting. I'm not sure how much Spider-Manly stuff, as far as just like, a part of the big part of the, attraction with Spider-Man is the crazy heights. It's very reminiscent of Assassin's Creed, which we've been talking about tonight. Being able to go to some of those, top points in Manhattan, being able to look across the skyline of the city and just like pick out a point based on height, that stands above, the rest of the city and kind of go there to capture that view. It's pretty awesome part of the game. So now you're going to be going into Queens and Brooklyn, and I just don't know what heights of buildings and stuff there will be able to be. I also don't know exactly where. Do you remember where is Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum is in Greenwich, right? Is that in Queens?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Greenwich. Yeah, I don't know. I think so. I believe so.
Okay. I'll look that up later on tonight. But hopefully you'll be able to swing by the Sanctum Sanctorum. But it's pretty exciting. And I mean, I don't know that size of map necessarily. We a lot of times we hang our hats on these specs and choose them to be indicators of a game's impending greatness. I don't know that I mean, I'm sure Insomniac could have made a great Spider-Man 2 game and just kept it to just Manhattan. But this will certainly, allow for some excitement. Now you've got both of the characters from the first game and its, primary uh, expandable, in the game, which will hopefully lead to a lot of additional side missions and adventure content, with both characters. I guess my main concern from a Miles Morales perspective is I just hope that having both characters in the game lets them treat both characters, give them their own enough attention with enough, character development arc in it. That seems like it's going to be pretty tough to do. But we'll see how they pull it off. Obviously, I have the highest level of trust in Insomniac. It wouldn't surprise me for there to be another expandable or DLC that, again, because they've got both Parker and Miles in the game, that both of them may receive some significant amount of kind of expanded content delivered after the game. There's also been discussions that that Spider Gwen is getting a movie, I think an animated movie, after Spider-Man 2, and so obviously the interest is high for that character to also come into the video game Spider-Man universe, possibly as DLC, possibly with her own expandable. We'll see, but I mean, in a year that I readily admit is absolutely one of the best years in video games ever, probably since 2017. While that is the case, there's really not a lot on the market and in the landscape right now that I personally find appealing. I got asked today if I could get Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, it's not really on my radar right now. So I don't know that that's going to get added to the Switch library. I mean, I'm really personally knuckling down on genres that are directly in my wheelhouse. So, things that I'm looking forward to is I'm looking forward to F1 2023, which comes out in June. I think there's another game. I think there's another simulation game or maybe racing game that might be coming out. I thought in June there was one game. Oh, Super Mega Baseball 4. I didn't even realize that they were working on that. Will be coming out this month as well. So, in a year where I'm playing lots of baseball and lots of racing games and racing simulations, those are two that I'm looking forward to. And of course, I think as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, this is the last year that Nacon and KT Racing had or last year was the last year that they had the FIA WRC license, the World Rally Championship license. So whether or not that means we're getting a dirt rally this year or next year, I'm not sure. So that all being said, the whole point of me saying that was while there's not a lot appealing to me this year, I am super looking forward to Spider-Man 2. It may very well wind up being one of the only kind of story-based games that I really dive into in 2023. Still no release date for this title yet, so fingers crossed that Candyman's leak of this coming out in September holds true. I would expect that we're going to get something that is kind of like the Ragnarok approach last year, meaning I'm pretty convinced that what was going on last year was, Cory Barlog was saying, do not telling Sony, leadership and management, do not tell the fans the planned release date for this thing yet. And so my team says that they're absolutely meeting that date and they have the fullest confidence that they're going to meet it. Which I think is why we got kind of the last minute reveal of the release date for God of War Ragnarok, which I think in this day and age is a good way to play it. Given all the Sturm and Drang that we get over studios and publishers revealing games too early, and then people being angry about delays and yada yada yada. I think it was a pretty level-headed and smart approach to take, given the where the market is now competitively, right in the chess game between PlayStation and Xbox. So, but fingers crossed, we'll get this in September. Um, it'll be interesting who blinks in the game of chicken between Spider-Man and Starfield. I'm absolutely convinced Starfield's going to come in later than September, and so whether or not once that word gets out, if I'm right that Starfield won't make September and it'll come out more like November, then the question will be does PlayStation and Insomniac take the time for extra polish, or do they go ahead and get the game out early in the holiday season? When people are also obviously jumping on Madden and things of that nature, but they also probably want to steer pretty clear of the Call of Duty date as well, which will probably be November again. So interesting times, interesting times.
So I haven't played the original Spider-Man yet, or Miles Morales. Is there a so when you're traversing the land or the Manhattan, is there like an in-game reason where you can't get past that, or is it just like a wall you hit, like if you try to swing, past where the horizon?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never like tried that, as a just, try and make it see if I can get it to glitch or whatever. It's really, I mean, by the same token, I've never tried that in Assassin's Creed either. It's one of those things where it's the, tchotchke palooza of icons on the map. And it's like I get so obsessed with going around to those things, like I would just never had the incentive to go, you know, push at the edges of the invisible barrier to see whether or not I'm really on Earth or I'm really just on a spaceship.
It was a movie like that. I can't remember the name of it now. But anyways,
Yeah, I think there've
yeah, I
been
mean
a few sci-fi shows with that. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's good though because there's so much to do, or there's things to keep you occupied. You don't even think about doing that kind of stuff, so it's nice. All right, let's jump into the next news story on Knights of the Old Republic remake, possibly not being dead after all.
Yep. So this story over on VG247 by Osin Kuunke. Knights of the Old Republic remake might not be dead yet, according to a recent financial report. Though how it's faring is another question. The Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake is in an uncertain state right now, but a recent report does at least suggest it's still in development. It's safe to say that since its announcement in 2021, things haven't been sounding too good for the remake of Knights of the Old Republic. A report last year claimed that development had ceased due to multiple key members of the staff being fired from the developer, Aspire. Now, as first reported by Insider Gaming, the full year report from Embracer Group seems to confirm that Knights of the Old Republic is still in development, even if that doesn't mean much for how far along it might be. So, this has obviously been a sordid tale. I can't remember the Knights of the Old Republic roadmap is so convoluted. I think this is the remake that's exclusive to PlayStation, but there was another one that was going on for the Switch, which I think is already released, which was not a remake, but was maybe a remaster.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So, Embracer, with its 200 studios or so at last count, kind of dropped a few tidbits during its earnings call, its financial reporting over the last week or two, and this is one of them. So, you can look forward to that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's great that things are being remade and remastered and next genified, but and Jedi Survivor has its own problems, but I personally think we're getting pretty decent Star Wars content right now, video game wise. We had Star Wars Squadrons a few years ago for space jockeys who want to play space flight sims, which is a thing that I will probably be getting back to here shortly. I've already kind of gone back in and toe dipped, towards the end of last year. I just don't. I know that this got a lot of buzz. I don't know that anybody's sitting around holding their breath for this. And if you're a PC gamer, of course, you could still go get Knights of the Old Republic. So, I mean, 1 and 2. So, I don't know. This is coming to PlayStation, so it probably doesn't impact you directly, Tao. But any other thoughts on this business wrinkle?
No, I mean, it's just interesting, like what happened. I guess. Well, even though we kind of don't know exactly. Obviously, people were fired, and you know, that's going to put a wrinkle in things. But then I know later in the article they're saying that maybe Saber Interactive itself kind of took over development, but obviously that hasn't been verified or anything. But there's speculation. But um, I I think I've tried going back and playing this game like multiple times, and it's just like I always get distracted by something or other. So this was kind of like, okay, like maybe maybe this would be a PC release too at some point. um but it's yeah, it was never like on my radar as far as like, oh, I can't wait for this to come out or anything like that. Not like I said, like I didn't like the game or anything. It's just things happen, and I just always got distracted. But yeah, it's unfortunate. So all right, let's jump into, unless you have any other comments on that one, the next news story on Total War.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention is that that remake is coming to PC and PS5. But yeah, I mean, I think this is. I mean, in my mind, I think going back to you saying that you jump back into it but got distracted. I think this is a case where you know. I mean, Knights of the Republic was. I mean, the original. I mean, Knights of the Republic was on the original Xbox, and at the time when it came out, it was absolutely a marvel for consoles. But the state of design and the state of the art, I feel like, has exponentially gone so much further beyond where PCs were in 2003. I mean, the experiences that you can play on PC now, 20 years later, are just like light years beyond what we were playing in 2003. And so, I mean, again, I think this news has. I mean, even the reveal that it was being remade has a lot of scratch for PlayStation players, in particular for people who are obsessed over who which platform gets what exclusive titles. But I mean, my impression for me as a PC gamer was always like, oh, okay, like I don't know that I need a remake of Knights of the Old Republic. I'd be much more interested in a new, more advanced Star Wars title. And again, we have Jedi Survivor now. The old kind of faux turn based approach. I just don't think that. I mean, I've gone back and played Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2 as well, and they're just not the marvels that they were, 20 years ago. So I don't know. If it were I mean, that's what we always we never know when they say remake. We never know if they're really going in and ripping the guts out and making an entirely new game with a new experience, right? And they're always trying to straddle this line between evolving a title to more modern design approaches, but then also you're going to have the crowd of people who say, if it's not like pixel to pixel faithful to the original KOTOR, then it's a failed remake, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting. It was a big shoulder shrug when this thing was announced for me in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you always get those people too. It's like, oh, you can remake it and everything, but just don't do anything with the gameplay. Just leave the gameplay and pretty it up, but that's fine. It's like, okay, like make up your mind. Like, which one do you want? But I guess it depends on the game too, like, and what you're into. And you have a good point. Like I forgot too that this is a turn-based game, and that's probably one of the reasons I kind of bounced off of it back in the day, because that's never been my cup of tea. But it was Star Wars, so I was like, I'll give it a try. But yeah, I just always kind of keep trying to go back to it, and it's just like, I don't know. And it's on the Switch, so maybe one day I'll pick it up on there too on a sale. But we'll see what happens. Okay, final news story is on Total War Pharaoh.
Yeah, so this story over on Polygon by Mike Mahardy. Total War Pharaoh completely shifts gears after the series' fantasy phase. In 2016, Total War Warhammer marked a sharp turn for the long-running strategy series. For 16 years, developer Creative Assembly had leapfrogged between historical settings, offering a general's perspective on Sengoku period Japan, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and aggressive 18th century imperialism. Total War Warhammer, in keeping with the fantasy setting of Games Workshop's tabletop universe, introduced magic, dragons, vampires, orcs, and the explosive kinds of battles. All of those things apply. It sparked a trilogy that's now about spectacle as much as it is about strategy. So last week, Creative Assembly announced their next installment in the Total War series, Total War Pharaoh. And Total War has been, I don't know that I've ever been in love with Total War as much as I was with Total War Rome. And in fact, a lot of times these days I will go back. In fact, I'm getting an inkling to go back and play now. I will go back and play Total War Rome as a in preference to playing Total War Three Kingdoms or Total War Warhammer. I was kind of, I don't want to say unimpressed by Warhammer, but I noted, on this show when I played Warhammer that I just kind of thought like graphically it would have advanced a little further. So this story is about the new game that's coming out. It's kind of pertinent around my household because we've been talking a lot about the 18th and 19th. I can't remember exactly what the formal term for them is, but the 18th and 19th Pharaoh dynasties in Egypt. There was also the recent Netflix dramamentary, I think I would call it, that was produced by Jada Pinkett Smith on, like I said, on Netflix about Cleopatra, which caused a huge stir of controversy. But we've been delving into the history of Egypt and the pharaohs. So it was kind of amazing that as we were having that discussion around my house, all of a sudden this game popped up. And it is actually set, I think, just before the time of Ramses the Third. I want to say when I went and looked up the years, and then it crosses over into the time that he would have been the ruler of Egypt. Also pertinent because I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins. So this is in a time when we don't necessarily Ubisoft feels like they've kind of backed away from this. Let me spin the roulette wheel, pick a moment in history, and totally model that civilization and base my Assassin's Creed game in it, which was always a big appeal to me as a former history major. This is something that's kind of right up my alley. All of the games, all the Total War games since Total War Rome, I felt haven't captured the grand strategy part of it that made me fall in love with Total War Rome. So I'm hoping that this really gets back to that, particularly in an era where you're going to have the Persian Empire, the Greeks, and some of the grand maneuvers that were going around the Mediterranean basin, at the time. So looking forward to this. I'm hoping that it recaptures some of the Total War magic. I know there are huge fans of Total War Warhammer. Like I said, it wasn't my particular cup of tea. Maybe because I was looking for something a little more historically grounded. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one, particularly the stuff around Ramses III. I'm also hoping, to help with that, historical kind of review we've been doing. That this provides a lot of, in-game like encyclopedia reference material and things like that. To help us kind of get more familiar with the time, but looking forward to it.
In Total War, is it more? Is it an RTS or is it more like the Civ series?
Well, it had its start as an RTS, and with Total War Rome, they added a meta to it that is kind of grand strategy. So now it is really the template game where you spend a lot of time kind of blown out in the map at a high zoom level, orchestrating your grand strategy and maneuvering your armies around and principal units around, kind of more in a Civ-like fashion. But then when two generals get in proximity of each other, then they go to battle, and then it zooms in to an RTS phase.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I think I remember now. You had mentioned that before on some of the other games when you played them. All right. Yeah, I've never played any of the Total Wars, so that's why I wasn't too sure. This one might be pretty interesting though, since it's like I said, I like the Egyptian theme of it, so that might be kind of cool. It was kind of interesting. I was looking over when I was looking over the article they had mentioned. He just, he's going through the gameplay, some of his gameplay, and he's saying how he had his troops, moving in, and all of a sudden like a sandstorm came in, and that pretty much like messed up his archers. Obviously, you couldn't not gonna shoot any arrows when there's a sandstorm, so he had to like change their kind of position and how they were gonna play out. So that's kind of cool. So definitely have to I might want to check those out. Maybe check out some of the older ones, like the Rome or something, just to whet my appetite. Warhammer, I don't know. Warhammer games. I don't know. I played a couple of them, more of like the kind of, I don't want to say FPS, but it's the first person type of game. So maybe something like this might be more appealing to me.
Yeah, and I was big into I think they were done by Relic, the Dawn of War games, and forgive the sacrilege, but I don't. I know that there's a huge thing between, I guess, Warhammer and Warhammer 40K are like technically different. I don't get it. I'm not Henry Cavill. All geek props to him, but I'm just not that deep into this particular stuff. I mean, I love the video game part of it. The Dawn of War series I really liked. But yeah, I wasn't as big into the Total War Warhammer. But like you said, this is giving me an itch. This game actually comes out October of this year. So, I was just talking earlier in the show about how, I'm really kind of grounding down into my wheelhouse of things that I really like. And it's really causing me to go back and play a lot of older games from my libraries, more so than like buying new stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely going to put the Dawn of War series on my radar for going back and dipping into, as well as probably pull up Total War and Total War 2, Total War Rome and Total War Rome 2 as well.
Nice. Yeah, I was actually thinking of going back to Age of Empires because I had started playing 3, or no, yeah, 3, and then I just once again kind of fell off of it. And I know they have 2 on there too, on the Game Pass at least for PC. So I might jump back into those games and kind of have that RTS itch again. And I still have the remastered Command and Conquer 2 that I can go back to. So I've been kind of itching for an RTS to play again. So jump back into those. All right, let's jump into our round robin games. And first up, looks like you have you're jumping back into Deathloop.
Yeah, and Tao, your camera's coming across frozen, both in. Oh no, yeah, it's unlocked. So I went back and tried to get back into Deathloop, and I think I realized this time. The first time around, I said I bounced off because I bounced off very early. You hit that screen the first time into Umdal, I think it's called, and it brings up that whole warning of like basically, hey, this is really a roguelike, so this is what you can expect. And I was like, yep. I just kind of pushed myself back from the table and said, I think I'll come back and chew on that later. And then I tried to toe dip into it again when it came to Game Pass. And that was about the time that I was hitting the realization that I was like, yeah, I'm not playing shooters on consoles anymore. And so I went back to try to and get back into it again on PC, and I realized this time what may have really been causing me to back off the entire time was that I had forgotten how much I really hate sneaker shooters. I just don't have the patience for them. The design always feels a little contrived in that, it's always, the reality is it's always designed for you to fail, right? Meaning like the frequency and the patrol patterns are always such, are always such that it's designed for you to like get caught. And to force you to such a slowed down pace that I'm like, I'm not interested in like spending the amount of time that it takes to kind of sneak around a level. And I always get to a point where I'm like, screw this. And I just, want to go guns blazing. And then you guys have heard me comment on the show. Then my marker is, okay, if you're going to be a sneaker shooter, that's fine. But what you have to do for me, because I love being a superhero in a video game, right? The Crisis to me is a great example. Crisis allows you to approach things cloaked, right, and with stealth, but when bullets start flying, you're not a weakling, right? You're not completely inept. You can use speed, you can use defense, you can change the geometry of the battle in order to gain a tactical advantage and deal with any threat that becomes like aware of your presence. Deathloop is right on the kind of the edge of that. Health drains very quickly. You can't absorb that many hits from enemies. But like I said, it just drives me to that point where I just don't have the patience for it. So I think my best hope of kind of sticking with it is playing maybe a couple of missions at a time, and like just playing like 30 minutes to an hour, and then shutting the game down and going and doing something else. So this week while I've been playing through it, I've been doing that, and then wrapping that session up, and then going to play Call of Duty, right? Which is a kind of a good, it's kind of mixing your red wines with a good kind of smelly cheese, right? I mean, it's kind of the approach.
It's a good balance.
Yeah, yeah. The game plays, okay on PC. It's not optimized as well as a lot of other, games of, in the last year or two. I get, 90, anywhere from 90 to 144 frames per second, playing at 1440p on a 3070 Ti. It's not lighting the world on fire, but it's manageable. But I've had some decent fun with it. Like I said, the sneaking around just kind of really, kind of grates on me. Like I love it when you pull it off, but but the notion of sneaking around for 20 minutes, it's kind of like my feeling about battle royales, right? The notion of sneaking around for 20 minutes and then tripping an alarm or getting seen by somebody, and that just completely ruining your last 20 minutes of gameplay. Just, if I've got 2 hours in a night, right, to play video games, which I'm already taking that out of sleep, right? To just blow 20 to 30 minutes of game time is just not a great proposition for me. But it's, I think it's a great game. I think it's a well-designed game. I'm not in the camp of some of the popular opinion that runs around that says that the game is not as good as reviewers gave it credit for. The game was accepted well. It's got high marks by the Steam community, which I hold in far higher regard than any reviews or any commentary from any YouTube channels. And the game has sold well. So, and it's an Arcane game, and it does what Arcane has always done, which is find some kind of unique, mechanic or hook that makes their games differentiated from the common shooter. So, I'm having a good time with it. It's just kind of in that corner of one of my nopes that is making me kind of approach it a certain way.
Yeah, that's generally how anything stealth is like. No, I can't. I can't do it. Like I've tried playing, like Hitman and what's the Ubisoft one that everyone wants back, Splinter Cell, and those type of games. And it's like you mess up in one of those games, and it's like you're pretty much screwed for the most part. There was a couple different Splinter Cells I tried, and the one was a little bit more forgiving than the others. It didn't like fall apart as much as like some of the games, but definitely Hitman. Like if you like screw up there, it's like you're done, which I guess kind of makes sense because obviously you're Hitman, so you're trying to be stealthy, but it just it's just not my loop, and for a game that I want to like you said 20-30 minutes, and then you got to start over or something, or do something different, or it's just you get kind of annoying sometimes. So
well, and that's the thing of it. The truth of the matter is that what the design does is it really pushes it into the envelope of becoming a puzzle game. And I do not like puzzle games, and I don't play puzzle games. And contriving an elaborate puzzle into my first person shooter is just a thing that I'm just gonna kick and buck my way out of. Now I love Hitman. When you effectively pull off an assassination, it's great. But like I used to talk about, like it's a lot like Mirror's Edge, or I can't remember one of the other games that we were talking about, but it's kind of like those games. It's those games that the analog of pulling off the stealth is very much the mirror of pulling off the dynamic movements, and that feeling that I hate of jank when you're going along, you're making a great parkour run on Mirror's Edge, and then you screw something up, you know. And I'm like, it just jolts you out of the immersion, and just kind of makes it janky. Hitman has a good. I feel like Hitman. I don't know how they've done it, but IO Interactive has somehow made a thing where, like, if you screw up in Hitman, your way of getting out of that just feels less janky. I don't know how to describe it. It feels more like kind of like Assassin's Creed, like when you know you get noticed, but then you jump into a hay bale, right? Or you get into grass, similar to Horizon Zero Dawn, right? When when somebody notices you. Those games, they do a good job of making the recovery and the relaxation of the alarm state of the NPCs feel like you're still immersed in the video game and not just completely like yanked out of that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I think I mentioned it before. There is one stealth game I have actually played through and beat, and that was the Metal Gear Solid back on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation. That pretty much like killed my soul for for any stealth games afterwards, because it's like, man, after going through that game and beating it, it's just like, man, I just can't do it anymore. Like that was it. I was like one and done after that one.
Yeah, same way, same experience, and I've never felt good playing any other Metal Gear like after that.
Yeah,
And every time it gets me into those stealth, and I'm like, no, no, no. I've done this once. I'm not doing this again.
yeah, and I don't know if like the later ones might be a little bit more forgiving, especially like 4 and 5. But yeah, I was just like, I can't do it anymore. It's just like took 10 years from my life beating that game. So yeah, so all right. Just the one game I wanted to mention real quick was Fortnite. Surprise, surprise. And only because surprise that I got this past week was, hey, they brought back trios, the trio game mode, which they had taken out a couple weeks ago.
Really, really, I mean, no, I mean, I'm gonna say rolled over, but I don't really. They rolled over that quick. To
Yeah, I was surprised too. Like I couldn't believe it. Like it was what 2 weeks. Like I said, I think 2 weeks, and then they brought it back right away. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess everybody must have stopped playing, or they saw a dip in revenue, or something happened where they had to bring it back, or maybe they were going to do that all along. I don't know what the reason was in the first place. Like it didn't make sense to me, um, why they even took that out when they had all these other modes that you could play, and all this other stuff going on in the game. But and like you mentioned, like you said, and maybe it was just they looked at the stats and maybe it was one of the lower modes that people were playing, but I guess people complained enough, and they brought it back. So so that was good. I mean, I liked it. Like I said, I think trios is a perfect a balance, between going just solo and doing a full squad of four. So and well, duos is fine too, I guess, but trios always seem to be the perfect balance. So jumped back into that a little bit this past week, and was playing that and playing through ranked mode still, which is the only duos right now. Uh, which is kind of weird. I thought it would kind of go across all. Maybe they're just kind of slowly doing it. That was the one thing I was thinking about this past week, and I didn't get a chance to look it up. But was like, how does the rank? Because they started rank with like what 3 weeks, well, maybe 2 weeks left in their season for this season. So I don't know if it's a season thing or if it just goes on forever, or like how the rank actually the rank mode is going to work, or if there's seasons, if there's a separate season for that mode also. So I've been going through that. I actually clawed my way back up to gold finally, because I dropped back down to silver. So you can drop levels. So I dropped back down to silver after playing for a little bit, and I finally got back up to gold. So just going through that and playing that still. So I'm enjoying that. So we get the new season next Saturday, I believe. I think the season officially ends Friday night, so I'm assuming Saturday or Sunday the new season will begin. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. So you got a couple more games you were playing this past week: Train Sim and some racing game, Project Cars 2.
Yeah, so the great flourish of the year for me here in May and June is, um, as I mentioned, the last few episodes, I've been definitely getting back to vehicle simulation games. Probably at a point here where I'm going to probably have one in my rotation every week. Um, but train sims have been a thing that I've been wanting to get into for a couple of years. And I have three or four of them in my Steam library. But like every time I've gotten into them, like I've either slogged through the onboarding, as we talked about earlier, or just something about the approach to get into it just kind of kept me out. Um, and so I finally went in to try Train Sim World this week. Train Sim World 3 just came out last fall. It's actually surprisingly on PlayStation 4 and 5. I'm not sure if it's on Xbox, but I obviously played it on PC, um, and playing it on a you on an ultra widescreen, right, 34-inch monitor, which it supports. So it looks gorgeous and amazing, with like that entire viewport kind of available to you. But but Train Sim World, it's got. So first of all, I think so. Let me go back a little bit. So I had Train Sim World 2, Train World Sim 3. Like I said, came out last fall. It was on sale on Steam, where when you bought the game, you also got like four of the DLC packs or something with it. Train Sim World 2 has been delisted because when they put up Train Sim World 3, so a really awesome thing is Train Sim World 3 brings in and allows play of all the Train Sim World 2 content. So I guess when they put out Train Sim World 3, they just said, no, the way to play your Train Sim World 2 content is now Train Sim World 3. And so they delisted Train Sim World 2. So I wasn't aware that 3 had come out. I went in to play 2, but then somehow came across this note that said, well, 2 has been delisted. And I'm like, delisted? Is it no longer supported? And then I went and pulled the thread on this, and I said, oh, well, let me go ahead and buy Train Sim World 3. So I pulled all the stuff together. It's got, I don't know, something like 16, 20, 23 trains or something like that. I started playing with the BR401 ICE, which is the Intercommuter Express train. The one that I played was a route in Germany. So this is a train made by Siemens that won some competition back in the 90s for high-speed train transport in Europe or whatever. It's an electric train that travels at speeds of up to 280 kilometers per hour. Thing is a beast. So one of the things is if you have never driven or operated a very large vehicle, meaning multi-ton vehicle. One of the things is that those types of things, they ain't turning on a dime, and you can get them in very bad situations very quickly that you can't recover from because this is when all 12 cars on this train are put together, this is a 390 ton steel tube hurtling along at 280 kilometers per hour. So it does things like doesn't respond very well if you don't have your speed up when you hit even like a very minor percentage of upgrade of slope. You'll hit like a 1.2%, 2% slope, and you'll see speed come off the vehicle if you're not up right at a certain speed. There are things associated with trains that just, again, if you haven't been around locomotives, like you just don't like there are actually speed limits, and there are speed limits in certain zones. So you have to be conscious of those. With the BR401 it's pretty much a start to finish transit. I can't remember the full name of the transit, but the station I stop at is the Fulda Gap station, which if you're a Cold War kid and studied military maneuvers in Europe, Fulda Gap will will resonate with you as far as its key strategic location. But yeah, but you can pop out to an external camera, pan the countryside. You go through tunnels, so I'm always made to remember Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan when uh, when Kirk and Spock and Savick force transmit a code to the Reliant to force them to drop their shields. And Khan's crew see the shields dropping, and the guy has the panic in his face, and he's like, and Khan is like, "Where's the override? Where's the over?" That's what I feel like whenever I'm driving one of these simulation vehicles and something's going wrong, and I'm like frantically looking around the controls. I had done some of the training missions. It's got a really great training mode in this game. You can actually one of the things that this game does that's really neat and interesting in my mind is you can walk around in first person mode. You can get up out of the conductor's chair and exit the train, and things like that. So you go to the training yard and you're in first person view, right? And it actually has you like walk around the train yard. You can go to the different trains and stuff. But at any rate, I had done some of the training modes, but hadn't done all the training modes. And so I start driving this train, start picking it up to speed. I'm at like 100 something kilometers per hour, and bam, I go into a tunnel. And I'm like, where are the lights? So I didn't know how to turn the master light switch on and all that. So I had to figure that out while I was in the train. But I had a really great time. That transit like goes over some bridges and goes through a lot of tunnels, and there's a lot of scenic areas that you go through. The other train that I drove was, I think it was called the 493, which is a metro train. What's modeled is the southeastern train line in the southern part of England. It drives a route from like London to, I can't remember the last name or the name of the final station, but it's different in what it models in terms of and changes your focus and concern. I mean, quite honestly, driving the BR-401, that thing's a missile. Really, you get it started, get your speed up. You have to pay attention to different zones, and there are different zones of control on train tracks that mitigate that impact like how your brakes control and how your speeds control. But it's quite actually like a lower cognitive load than driving this commuter train that I drove, which like there's only like a kilometer, 1 to 3 kilometers between stops, and the train travels up to 80 kilometers per hour. But really, what you're managing the whole time is you only have like a minute, or because you're trying to maintain schedule, right? It's basically an above ground subway essentially. If it's the metro, and so what you're managing is you're trying to manage staying on schedule, and so your acceleration time and curve makes a difference on whether or not you get right to your next stop on time. You got to get the train up to 80 kilometers per hour, but you also got to pay attention to when you're right entering the zone for the next station and get the thing down in time. The brakes are a lot more responsive. I felt like the BR-401. So it's just it's for a sim head like me, it's really awesome. To finally be experiencing this after I've had it on my list of things to do for 2 years. The game plays with a controller. And that's one of the things that like I struggled for like the first night I actually tried to grab 2 of my throttles from my flight control systems to try and set them up as a train controller. That did not work. Because for some reason, even though I had like the mapping software for each throttle and was like mapping the keyboard controls from the game to the throttles, it just wasn't recognizing them. It does use a standard Xbox controller, so that's what I've been using. There is a train controller. It's by a company called Railway. That's like a $220 controller, and I don't know. I mean, I want. I mean, obviously, my joy in playing Sims is getting as close to an authentic, experience as possible. I just don't know if I'm going to play enough train sims to warrant a $220 investment. What I would love to find is I would actually love to take the controller because I play with the controller like sitting down on like a keyboard cushion in front of me because it just train controls go in a console in front of you. You don't hold a controller in your hand, so it feels more natural for me to like lay the thing down and kind of manage it like like levers and stuff on a train console. So I don't know. That's the closest thing I was able to get to like the authentic train experience. But it was a good time and graphically performant. Looks wonderful, like I said, on a 34-inch ultra wide screen. So it was a good time.
So I've never played the train sim, but I've played some other sims like flight sim and stuff like that. So in this game, are you just plotting out like, hey, I'm going to go point A to point B and C and D or whatever, however long you want to go, or is there like a I won't say mission, but like a quest that you got to do or something like that?
Yeah,
You
there's
kind
a
of you
lot.
kind of alluded it to it, but
Yeah,
just kind of
there's a
wondering.
lot of scenarios. Like, I mean, somewhere up in the hundreds. But with that BR 490, I think not BR, but with the 493 that I drove, there were there's again, I'm just at the beginnings of it. So in one of the scenarios, so I guess what happens is the conductors like work in shifts. So like a conductor they'll have whatever shift that they have. They'll drive the train to a station. They'll leave the car and like the relieving conductor will come on and like I guess they do a turnover or whatever and that's one of the scenarios like you're actually waiting at a train station for your train that you're going to take over to show up. And then you go in and take it over and like finish out the route or whatever. There's another scenario that actually failed because I have to go back and understand like the train signage that I missed. But you are actually like I think you're finishing up the route for the day. So the end sequences you're actually pulling it into like a train yard at the end of the line. But the train signage and speed restrictions and things like that are something I didn't know, so I like blew by like a warning zone at too high a speed or something like that. But yeah, there are scenarios. There's freight scenarios. There are passenger scenarios. Like I said, when I drove that BR 401, one of the sequences is loading passengers. And there's that train has a very particular sequence to it. It doesn't have the some of the automation that the commuter train does. So that sequence is different. So yeah, I mean there's and then there are casualty scenarios as well where you have to manage a train that has some type of mechanical failure or mechanical failures that will be presented. So yeah, it has things like that in it as well.
Do they do like city like subways or like L trains like I'm near Chicago, so like L or elevated trains or anything like that, or is it more like just cross country type of stuff?
Oh no. So that's what I was saying. That second train that I was talking about, the 493, that was a commuter train. That's like
Oh, okay.
that's like being the conductor on the metro in DC, right? It's I don't think any of them are underground routes. Although, like I said, that BR 401, you're in tunnels probably 30% of that transit. I mean, in some very long tunnels,
Yeah.
but no actual subterranean or underground things. But yeah, definitely ones that are elevated and things of that nature.
And
It
is the terrain? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting. I'm gonna have to kind of play around with it because when I was driving the BR 401, I mean, part of the zen of it was popping to that external view and seeing some of the mountainsides and the forests and stuff go by. When I was driving the metro, the 493 in London, like there's no time, like where you can pop out to that external view as you're cutting through like some sections of countryside. You do that, but like when you've got like 1.2 kilometers from one stop to the next, and you got to get up to 80 kilometers and back and get the thing back down, to stop on a dime. And let me tell you, if you overshoot a stop, this is what I mean by like having a multi-ton right vehicle. You overshoot a stop, like you're not like you've yeah. You know, I mean, you come into some place too hot, like you're just not gonna succeed in that scenario. And it's not like, you definitely pick out visual cues of like where you're going to learn to stop, and you start learning the braking power of the different trains. But it's not like there's a big sign sticking out that says brake here. you know, you've got to learn that stuff. But I'm sorry, what was the other thing you were going to ask?
As far as like the countryside and the cities and stuff, is it a recreation, or is it like just like a city, like kind of just like a generic looking city?
No, I
Kind of
think
like
it's
how in Flight Sim,
yeah,
they're using like big maps or whatever, but I don't know if it gets that detailed in this one.
it's pretty accurate. I don't know if like the houses that I'm passing by right on the 493 were like actual houses in Chatham, in London, or in England. But like when I was on the BR 401 and there's a section where I'm like where you're running alongside a highway. When you pop out to the camera view, like the highway's full of cars, like in motion, right? So, it's a it's 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 a living sim. I mean, like people are going about their business and like things are happening out in the town. Whether or not it's a laser mapped like 1-to-1 recreation of the cities, I don't know. Just because I haven't had a chance to look that up.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering. I know that's kind of the thing with Flight Sim, so I thought that'd be kind of cool too. All right, and last one you have here is Project Cars 2. You're jumping back into.
Yeah, so again, playing a lot of simulation games. Went back to play Project Cars 2. Didn't break out my wheel and pedals this week. Actually, strangely enough, on a whim, years ago I bought a Steel Series Stratus, which I bought when I was playing a lot of mobile games. So I bought it to be compatible, to play with Android. And it's a dual mode controller where it both uses a 2.4 gigahertz wireless dongle that it can use with Windows on PCs, and then it also has Bluetooth. So amazingly enough, it still works. It's still supported by Windows 10. Amazingly enough, even more so, I put the thing on a charger, and I haven't charged this thing for years. Like I bought it like when I first moved into this house, and used it for like a couple of months, and then really haven't used it since then. It was definitely around before this current console generation. But it had basically a 75% charge when I plugged it in, and it worked. Eureka! So yeah, dove back into Project Cars 2. Same thing, playing on the same 34-inch ultra wide monitor. It really amazes me, particularly on PC, how games hold up over time. I took one screenshot that I posted on my Twitter account. It's just really, really amazing how good the game looks. Playing it on a 3080 Ti system, and getting easily getting 165 frames per second. I'm pretty early in my start on that career on that game because I think I got it mainly out of my love for Project Cars, but didn't wound up not spending a lot of time with it. So I actually just finished my Formula rookie season, won that championship, and I've now gone on to I can't remember the name of the car, but there's a car series. I keep wanting to say Gino Torretta, but it's not Fast and Furious. But it's a particular car series in Europe. So. But having a lot of fun with that, playing, in going back and forth from the in cockpit view to the overhead swing camera view. The car that I was racing again in that Formula Rookie league is a lot like the kart racers. So they're not particularly fast and powerful, but they will slide around the track. They are very light. And so they don't offer as much stability. Of course, the claim to fame of the Project Cars series and Project Cars 2, this is a game that's made by a studio that was called Slightly Mad. I want to say, I think the first one was crowdsourced funding, and the second one was partially crowdsourced. But the games are actually published by Bandai Namco. And amazingly enough, Project Cars 2, I talked about how Train Sim World 2 has been delisted. Project Cars 2 has also been delisted because a lot of the licensing arrangements that they had with a lot of the car manufacturers expired. Slightly Mad Studios since had been acquired by Codemasters, and then of course Codemasters was then acquired by EA. So I think it was a matter of those licenses expired, and neither Bandai Namco nor EA were interested in extending those licenses and paying any more money for that. But yeah, another interesting licensing bit. I was originally got onto Project Cars 2 because I was planning on playing Grid Autosport, which is also in licensing hell, because I want to say maybe that was published by Bandai Namco also, but that was a 2014 game, which was made for console generation 7, so the Xbox 360 games may have been ported to PS4, Xbox One. I'm not certain, but basically, the neither Codemaster. I think it was because it was a weird publishing arrangement where Bandai Namco maybe had done it, or somebody that Codemasters didn't normally work with, and that publisher was just not interested in continuing to propagate that game on the newer systems or on the later versions of Windows. Grid Autosport did eventually come out on the Nintendo Switch, but that was the extent of it. No. So since Grid Autosport isn't available, can't be bought, obviously hasn't been upgraded for newer consoles, newer PCs, I went after Project Cars 2, and had a great time with that. Like I said, the SteelSeries Stratus works surprisingly well. For a controller that's not even being made anymore. And it's also made me think about, while I was playing it, I was also thinking about the fact that, because I went to look and see, I wonder if there are any, newer SteelSeries controllers that maybe I'd be interested in getting. And the Stratus was only superseded by the Stratus Duo, which at the time I bought the Stratus Duo came out like shortly thereafter and hasn't been upgraded since. It's kind of, there's a neat convenience to the fact that all of the console controllers now work with PC, but I also kind of miss the days when like Logitech and all and SteelSeries and all these other companies specifically made controllers specifically to work with PCs, and that market doesn't really exist anymore. But Project Cars 2 holds up well over time, plays amazingly well on new hardware, new GPUs. Has a great photo mode, just graphically great. I think one of the most notable things about Project Cars 2 that really jazzes me up is it has really great like cinematic soundtrack. So in between stages and whatnot, you get treated to like just these really big anthem, orchestral pieces and stuff. So all the bloom and the lighting and lens flares and all this stuff look really great on that game. So, in a world where where Gran Turismo comes along fairly rare and in between, and we don't have a date for Forza, it's good that these racing games are on PC to kind of scratch that itch.
Yeah, 2017. I didn't realize it was almost just about 6 years old. September when it was original release. So yeah, it's pretty nice. Yeah, I can't do the racing sims. not that deep into racing sims, so not like that. But yeah, well, it's good. It still works out well for you. I was actually, speaking of sims, going back to your train sim for a second. I was looking at that controller you mentioned. It's not as big as I thought it was going to be. Like I'm thinking this big monster, like what was that mech game? I think Capcom had made a controller for. I was thinking something like that, but it's actually a pretty decent size. So, but yeah, it's pretty pricey. So.
Yeah. Like I said, the amount of content that's in Train Sim World is really impressive. Like I said, the bundle that I bought probably has somewhere between 18 and 23 trains, and it has like a lot of different routes on it, and then has additional DLC, right, that I haven't bought yet. So, if you're big into kind of really survey sims like Microsoft Flight Simulator or Digital Combat Simulator, where there are just dozens and dozens and dozens of expansion packs that really let you go deep on some of these vehicles. Um, that going that deeply on into the train sim world, not train sim world, just like the game, because there are several other train sims that are out there. That I think I have like one or two other games as well. But that would have me go after that controller. But I've also seen things like where I think Train Sim World, being one of the more recent games, has been one of the best at supporting that controller. Because I've just seen lots of things too that have made me sketchy about, well, it doesn't work that great in this game and yada yada yada. But I'll keep my eye on it. I really just wish there was a way to. I mean, I started looking at the accessibility controllers as well, um, that would have more of a flat layout, or like a fighting sticks with like two joysticks on it, or things like that. And I would anything that I found, as I looked at the PlayStation accessibility control that they were coming out with too. Anything that I found, just the cost of it winds up being, once you buy all the additional bits and bobs that you have to go along with it, it winds up being, the same cost as that dedicated railway controller anyway. So I'm like, well, I mean, there's no point in doing that if, it's not really saving me anything. I may as well just get that controller. But, we'll see. We'll see how the year goes on.
Yeah, kind of surprised that there's so many train sim games because they have like a chart here where where it's compatible and it's like 14, 15 games on here. I was like, wow, okay. Some of these I've heard of actually, but most of them was like I didn't even realize. So yeah, interesting. All right, anything else from tonight, or anything you might be jumping into the coming week?
I haven't really figured out what I'm getting into. A lot of the games that I mentioned are games that I'm into now in my current sequence, so I'm not sure, when I'm gonna change it up again, but we'll see. I might, Street Fighter Six has a story mode, so that's been one of the newer games that I've been keeping an eye on, and obviously Diablo Four as well. Um, Diablo Four, it's very interesting. I haven't actually had time to go pull this thread, but it's super interesting that I think it's Ars Technica, Polygon, Rock Paper Shotgun, and PC Gamer have not rendered their final review scores, at least when I checked earlier today. And I think that they're waiting to see how kind of some of the live service stuff goes. But, I mean, the Metacritic score for Diablo 4 is high, but it's not high from like a lot of my like trusted review sites. So, I'm gonna hold off and see kind of what those four publications say, because they're ones that I tend to trust a little more, and kind of see what their overall take on Diablo 4 is. But those could, if Street Fighter 6 offers something close to that MK 9, 10, 11 experience, that I may be checking that out. I did see somewhere the How Long to Beat has the World Tour mode, which I guess is the story mode at 25 hours, which I found really surprising. So I'll read up a little bit more on that, and but maybe checking that out. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump a bit more into Assassin's Creed Origin, and probably gonna hold off on Diablo also for now. At least I know a couple friends of mine that I play with. I know all these different games with. They said they're actually holding off for now, at least to. Um, the one he had actually played the betas. He enjoyed it, but he there wasn't anything like super you know stuff that wasn't like so new that he had to jump out and get it right away. So, and then the other one was kind of salty because I guess there's no, at least like right now, there's no support class. I guess when it's coming out, right away. And I guess three was like that too. The other friend said that three was like that. There's no support class initially, and then eventually they released them, or released her, or whoever you want to play. So he was kind of salty that there's no support, because he likes to play support pretty much all the games we play, or the games that have a support class like Overwatch and stuff like that. So, so I'll probably hold off at least for now, and just kind of see how it pans out. And of course, huge Blizzard Activision game, I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of issues on the initial release. So, and I shouldn't say that just because it's Blizzard or Activision. Like, I kind of, when there's a huge game like that, there's always like a lot of problems, especially those first couple days on release. So we'll see how
Yeah, actually on PC the reports have been really good as far as reliability and stability goes. The one nit has been on the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4 version, where there's been like a licensing issue that, because I guess the way it's supposed to work, co-op is supposed to work, is maybe only one person is required to have like the early access license or something like that. Not exactly positive, but that apparently has not been working. I know the one storyline that I came across that I read a couple threads in was somebody who'd bought the early access license and was trying to play like with their wife, but on PlayStation 5, but the other person wasn't able to get in because they didn't have the early access license. But I think it's supposed to work the other way, but I'm not certain.
Yeah. Yeah, and more likely I'll probably get it on PC. I've noticed lately that I've been pretty much getting everything on PC now. Now that I'm slowly starting to move over from the console to PC finally, pretty much for everything. But because obviously I can still get Game Pass and stuff on there, and there's still some things I'll go back to consoles with, especially if it's if I'm playing something with my son. So I'll still keep it around, but I'll probably always have at least one console around. And 3 I actually bought on the Switch when it was released. So. I can't remember. I think there was supposed to be a Switch version, but I'll definitely be getting on PC this time around when I do eventually get it. So
yeah, no Switch version has been announced for 4.
Okay, I thought there was for some reason. All right, cool. All right, so that is it for episode number 293. Thank you, Game Logic. I don't know if there's anybody stopped by the stream today or not. Thank you if you did. If not, if you're in the future watching this, thank you for watching. And next week, Mr. Game Logic will be primary host, and I will be there. And I believe DB will be back. I think he should be back. So please join us next week. Should be back on Sunday, our normal day and time. Take care of yourselves out there and play those games, and we will see you next time.